Okay, so this video is days 3, 4, and 5, where I went to a bunch of places. Um, Days 3, 4, and 5, in those days, maybe not specifically in this order, I went to New York, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. Um, and that in itself is a nice thing. America is great for driving, if you're in the Northeast at least, because if you can drive like a couple, mind driving 2 hours, you can be in like a bunch of different states. So we drove a couple hours and we went to New York, where we went to the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in Amsterdam, New York, and Amsterdam, New York was this kind of weird, weird town. It's like um, imagine it. Okay, if you've seen like a zombie movie, think if you've ever seen the original Day of the Dead, where like they're out in the town and it's like there's no people around, and but suddenly they'll make noise and zombies will come. But imagine that, but with no zombies coming. Just you go to this town and it looks like some kind of apocalypse has happened. Not that all the buildings are destroyed, but just there's no people. It's like tumbleweeds, and you go to this town and like you know the lines on the street have been faded away and they've never been turning back. And like Amsterdam is like that. Everything looks like um, everyone picked up and left in the 70s and just left everything there. It's really a bizarre place because we were there for a while and we walked around for a bit and we went to inside buildings. We never saw another person. We were in what is, I guess, the downtown, but there was no people. There was a shopping mall that had decorations on the wall from the bicentennial, which is 1976, still up, and there was no people in there, and like all the shops were closed, and there were video games like arcade machines in there from the 90s, and there were vending machines that had Necco wafers and things like that. It was like just really strange, and it it was like it was like walking into a horror movie, and that's how Amsterdam, New York is. But it also contains the Pro Wrestling Museum, which is in a storefront with a glass window, and you think like, did we just drive a couple hours to come to the worst wrestling Hall of Fame ever? And you think that from looking at it, and then you go inside and you're like, nope, it's awesome. And it was awesome, and that was cool. And the guy in there was there were two guys like manning the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in Amsterdam, and there's plaques on the wall for all the wrestlers they've inducted, and there's tons and tons of memorabilia, like 2 floors worth, and it was free too. So I mean, no reason not to go, right? Um, and it was great. Everybody was friendly. I got a lot of time to meet some people that we drove up with Tom and I and another guy, Mark, who Tom and has mentioned on the podcast a bunch of times. But um, that was my first day meeting Mark, and that was cool. And we've we did that, and that was like, again, the kind of situation where um, all my food was gigantic, and then like Amsterdam, New York was like a jarring experience related, in comparison to Tokyo, where you can't like walk around anywhere and see no people. It's really rare unless you're like in some place that's not so busy and it's 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. or something. Maybe you won't see any people because there's no trains running. But even then, like you'll still probably see like one or two people because it's Tokyo. But Amsterdam, New York, in the midday in downtown, you won't see any people. So that was kind of a thing. Um, Another thing that like I noticed right away um, is that in through driving through various parts of New England and New York, I guess too. But man, there are American flags everywhere. Like it's the kind of thing you don't notice when you're in the U.S. because nobody noticed it until I pointed it out. But like, there's like American flags from every telephone pole lined up along the streets. It's like American flag mania, and it's a little strange because like you don't usually in Japan you don't usually see Japanese flags anywhere, and like there's a kind of a weird connotation to it where like if you see like somebody with like a flag up at their house or something, you imagine that they're kind of like a crazy right wing like weirdo that's going to be like screaming at you from a black truck. Um, that's like the kind of person you'd imagine they are because like nobody really puts up their Japanese flags for anything. Like you see it on like the police station and maybe at like a business headquarters or something at government buildings. But besides that, it's really rare to see. And then like when you go to the U.S., it's like flags everywhere. There was a crazy house with flags like 50 flags in the front yard. Like I don't know what that person was doing, but there was all types of stuff. It was like you'd just be driving along like scenic rural Connecticut, and there'd be like a flag every 100 feet, and it's just so weird. It's just the kind of thing you just don't notice it when you're living there, but when you leave and come back, it's like, oh my god, why are there so many flags? Um, which in itself led to some kind of interesting things that are going to be happening in the future, which you'll hear about, but not in this video. Um, okay. Oh yeah, here was the thing. Like in this day, we went to Massachusetts, where usually there's lots of places to go in Massachusetts. Massachusetts is like right above Connecticut. It's really easy to go to. You can drive an hour and get there pretty much. It's not that far. And we probably were. I can't remember where we went on the first day because we went to Massachusetts multiple times during the time I was there. But you would find like we were probably in Amherst or Northampton, and I know I was happy to go to a Trader Joe's for the first time in 10 years because they sell you know dried fruit that isn't sulfured and sugared, which is like every dried fruit in Japan. You can't like get non-sugared dry fruit. I don't know why. It's really weird. But in the U.S., I always buy some because you can't get it otherwise. And I think like that kind of thing is nice. We went like to a shopping mall at some point in our hometown, and it was strange. There was a lot of things about America that I thought were like, and I don't know, um, not different at all, which is even more kind of jarring than if everything was um, really different. And let me explain that. Like, if you were living in America in, say, um, I don't know, 1955, and you left America in 1955, and you came back in 1965, like, so much would be different that it would be really noticeable. The fashions would be really different. Like what people are wearing, the car shapes would be really different. Like, you know, um, the music would be really different. Everything would be like so incredibly different. And like even then, like if you were in America in 1968, and you left for 10 years and came back in 1978, it's like a new world. It's like entirely different. So um, even if you were in America in 1985 and you came back in 1995, you'd have like a real big difference in this kind of styles and clothing and the things like that. Whereas, I left America in 2005 and I came back in 2015, and like essentially nothing had changed. Um, the cars all looked the same, the fashions were essentially the same. It was like slightly different versions of the stuff that was still people were still wearing 10 years ago, and the music was essentially this similar kind of stuff. And it's a little strange, like why haven't things changed? We had this conversation when I was in the US, and I was thinking like I and everybody pretty much agreed that like, yeah, that is kind of a it's not like there's been any huge changes like there were in the previous examples I just mentioned. And I thought like that's interesting. It's interesting, but it's like a little strange. Like, you know, people are still like sagging their pants or whatever. That's like still a thing. Like, you think of how the difference between the fashion of like the late 60s to late 70s. Like, it's totally different. You wouldn't see anything that was like remotely similar. But, 20 years later, even like when I lived in the US, that was a thing, and it's still a thing. And like people are still like doing the same stuff. Like everything is like this. Everything was very similar in ways that like you wouldn't expect it to be, considering the way most of you know the 20th century was essentially. Um, yeah, but that was an interesting thing I thought. It it's not like a culture shock experience or anything, but like I don't know, it was interesting that things hadn't changed so much. But I did find um, the perfect example a of my problem, I guess, with the food sizes in the U.S. And this was a thing like Reese's peanut butter cups. They come in normally a package of two regular size Reese's peanut butter cups, and then like they had something called the big cup, which is like one Reese's peanut butter cup the size of, it's just one in a package, but it's like double size. So it's like getting the full package of, and but like at the convenience store I found like the the double big cup, or what, the king sized big size. Like it was one of those Reese's big cups, king sized. So you had one giant one, but there was two in the package. And I thought like, this is America. This is the perfect example of America, because if you imagine like a regular Reese's peanut butter cup, it's not that big. I mean, but it's a peanut butter cup. It's chock full of calories. But like when you see the big size ones, they look enormous, and they're like, they're thick. So, but the king size one has two, but it's already a big size. So it's the king size big size Reese's peanut butter cup, which I thought like perfectly encapsulated the way basically all food was presented in America. And I thought, this is it, perfect. And I couldn't think of a more ridiculous example. Like maybe if I got a double gulp or something at 7-Eleven, like it, just like this giant bucket of cola and the big size king size Reese's peanut butter cups, then I could have been like, I'm in America, and I'm there's nowhere else I could be. So yeah, let's see. Okay. Here was the thing. This is a thing I mentioned on Facebook. All of this stuff I'm just kind of paraphrasing from what I wrote on Facebook. And this was a thing that set people off. Like I mentioned, this is like a long post. It's not a short post. There's like six topics in the post. And out of those things, this is I thought was like the least offensive thing I could possibly have said, but it was a thing that set everybody off. Um, and like it set people off for days. Like days later, people were still complaining about this, and that I said it. Not that I started a Facebook war inadvertently. I like didn't, and it was the stupidest thing. I thought like, no, who is going to care about this? And what I mentioned was that I hate shorts. Seriously, that was it. I hate shorts. I think if you wear shorts, it makes you look infantilized, like you're 12. Regardless, I own one pair of shorts that I use at the gym begrudgingly. Like I don't like to wear them even at the gym. Like if I had gym pants, if it weren't like hot in the gym, I would wear gym pants. And I'll probably will when it becomes winter and it's cooler. But yeah, there were shorts, and I mentioned this, and it just set people off. People went crazy. Um, in the same post, in like literally in the same post, I was talking about American flags everywhere and giant-sized Americans and their giant-sized food, and the thing that set everybody off was shorts. Seriously. So yeah, that was it. I met a I met a bunch of people, and I want to say like looking at my list here. Let's see. Yeah, I met a bunch of people. And this time I went, and I actually met in New Hampshire one day. We went to the world's largest video game arcade, and I met Playongo here on YouTube, and that was really cool. It was good to meet him, and he was like exactly like I imagined him to be, which is like that never happens. Like, if you've met people from online, and you think like they're always not exactly the same as they are online in person. But Playongo was like exactly how I imagined him to be, and it was great. It was it was really nice to hang out with him, and we went out to to the arcade for the day, and then we went out to dinner at this kind of weird place we found only because it was close, and the other place we went to was closed, and it ended up being all right. So it was really good. Nice meeting him, and nice going out to all these places in the world. And yeah, I guess like I'll probably set up another YouTube war if people are gonna be angry about my shorts comments, because apparently it's a hot button topic. Don't make fun of shorts in the US or people are gonna cry or attack you or whatever. I don't know, but it was kind of a crazy topic. You'd think like out of all the topics you could bring up, a taboo topic like you don't want to talk about, fucking shorts.